Well, welcome, everybody. Good morning or good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you may be throughout the world. We are excited to share our presentation on Basis Bilingual School Beijing. I'm Tim Smith, and today we're excited to present some information about the newest school of the network that as we continue to grow. And today I'll be joined with Mark Silty, who will be the founding head of school for Basis Bilingual School Beijing. And we'll also be joined by Michael Holtquist, who is the international recruiter, specifically working directly with our school in Beijing. As part of our agenda for the presentation, we'll be hearing from Mark Silty about insights about the school, and we'll also get into some additional details about insights working with Basis International Schools as a whole. Mike will touch on some insights about the benefits, the expat package for teachers at our schools. And we do have a Q&A session at the end. So because we have the Q&A session at the end, one thing I do want to say is if you have questions throughout the presentation, at the bottom of your screen, you should have a Q&A button. Go ahead and hit the button, submit any questions you have along the way, and then we'll answer all the questions at the end. And with that, it gets to be my pleasure to welcome Mark Silty. And Mark, welcome to our presentation. We're really excited to hear about your new school. Opening a new school in Beijing is always something pretty spectacular, being right in the capital city. So we'll turn things over to you, and excited to hear what you have to share.
Thank you, Tim. And I want to say again, thank you to all of you who are joining us, whether you're joining us from within China, around the world, or you're watching it later in a rebroadcast. Thanks so much for visiting with us and learning a bit about Basis Beijing. My name is Mark Silty, and I'll serve as the founding head of Basis Bilingual School. I've been working with Basis for a couple of years now. I actually began my career in private independent schools in the United States, boarding schools on the East Coast. I've worked at some day schools in other areas of the country before going overseas again to rejoin the international community, and worked in a number of schools in China, in Vietnam, and in Mexico before joining Basis. So my career has been, as I said, in private independent schools and international schools around the world. Really excited for this opportunity, though, because this will be unique for me. The first time opening a school from its very first days as it begins to grow in the Beijing market. The Basis Bilingual School of Beijing will be located in the Shunyi district of Beijing, which is to the north of the city center. Those of you familiar with Beijing itself, you know that it's going to be very close to one of the international airports and in a very exclusive district of Beijing. And you'll find a lot of international schools up there. Construction of the facilities is very much in what I would call a Basis style. Basis has been a network for, well, we're in our 10th working year from our beginnings down in Shenzhen and other cities and areas of the south like Guangzhou or Guangming. And then we also have schools in places like Nanjing and such. We'll talk about that later. But when Basis creates a school, it first creates an environment for learning, and that's the facilities there. You're going to see several images, architectural drawings, and also we'll show you a little bit about the construction. But the facilities are going to be, as in all of the purpose-built schools of Basis, first rate. Theaters and cafeterias, gymnasiums, classrooms, laboratories for art and music. Our first 100-meter football pitch. I'm using football now in the European sense. Of course, black box theaters, pools, lecture halls. When Basis builds a school, well, frankly, they're rather magisterial today. As we open next fall, as we open in August of 2026, the anticipation is we will have grades K through 9, as well as a boarding program that will open. Now, why 9? You may ask that. Well, Basis has a very particular curriculum with high expectations for our students. We believe that at a minimum, it takes us 4 years to really prepare a student for the type of a future, the types of doors we want to open for them into their tertiary studies and on. So in all the basis schools that have started, we begin through grade 9 and then add a grade per year until we have our first graduating class. Now, as I said, you're going to see different architectural drawings. This one has actually been superseded. I'll get to more recent ones. But as you can see, we've been given or granted a large plot of land, which has allowed us to build truly a wonderful kind of facility. This is the kind of idea of what's going to happen. If you look at the football pitch on the right side of your screen, the closest building, shaped like an E, will be primarily K and the primary school. They're in there. There will also be offices on the top floor for our general manager and ops, as well as professional development rooms that we use with teacher meetings, parent meetings, and of course, in a basis school, all else that you would expect. For example, social emotional counselors, okay, deans, who are both tracking the academic but also the behavioral development of students and such. Right to the north of that first E, closest to the sports field, you see the kind of indoor athletic center. I'll show you pictures of that later on. To the right of the athletic building, you'll see the cafeteria, and below it a second E. And that second E would be the middle and the high school classrooms, and also laboratories and such. In the middle, you will have some theaters and offices and such. And I will tell you, when you see things like the Gathering Lawn or the Botanical Garden, the degree and attention to the natural environment in which we operate, to the landscaping and gardening around the school, is absolutely wonderful in the basis schools. And I have visited them all. And they are wonderful places of nature and growth, as well as of learning and development of students. Now, these are more updated architectural drawings, and there you see, as I describe, the central building, which would be the Grand Theater, also some other meetings rooms and offices. You see the two kind of E structures that I mentioned. If you look on the left-hand side of the roof on the back, you will see the observatorium, which is a feature of all basis schools and in our curriculum. And if you look at the back, the very back there, you will see that there is indeed a walkway joining the two buildings. If you have experienced Beijing winters, you will know why we will come to appreciate that greatly. It's located there in the surrounding areas. And as I said, the attention to the construction and the details are always impressive. Whether you have visited our newest schools in Shekou, down in Shenzhen, or in Chengdu, you will see, of course, that basis builds on a style and with an attention to detail that is truly there to build an educational environment in which teachers and students can be the very best that they can be. Libraries, we still absolutely believe in the power of the printed word, as well as all of the online resources and such. We believe that students are elevated by their environments, so we try to build purpose-built spaces which bring them in, which welcome them and such. I think I have as many faculty members using my current library as I have their offices, because it's such a wonderful place to work. Music rooms as well, and those of course will be shaped from the very first day as we begin to add the instruments and the devices that we use in the classroom, the teaching facilities as well. The indoor gymnasium will include as well a fitness area. I was just going over the plans for the fitness areas. That's something that I'll remark about basis and basis communities of teachers. is that they tend to be a very fitness conscious bunch. We have fitness facilities in all of our schools dedicated for the use of students, but also faculty and outside hours. Virtually all of our schools have indoor pools because swimming is not only part of our curriculum, it's part of our competitions in between the schools and such. We open our facilities for the use of faculty at night. If the BASIS campus has a boarding environment, those boarding students are also using it. They have hours of study at night, but we also believe that students need to work out and be athletic and active every day. And so boarding schools will use their facilities in the evening as well as faculty. Faculty will come in on the weekends to go swimming with their families. The laboratories are, again, purpose-built. We have different laboratories for biology and chemistry and physics. We have instructional classrooms as well. As sometimes you don't want your sixth grade students in a laboratory as you're trying to deliver a knowledge-based class. You want them paying attention. So we do a variety of different classrooms environments in science. We believe, and I'll talk about the curriculum a little bit later, we believe absolutely in the public presence of students. We want them to be experienced in being public persons, whether they're involved in speech and debate, or a music performance, or theater, and such. There is a kind of grandiose nature to our foyers, I will say that. So if you think that's an exaggeration at the bottom of the picture, it is not. That will be the foyer as you enter that environment, that stage area and such. We pay attention to things like, acoustics, and we pay attention to the touches of sight and sound and all of that. So obviously, one of the questions has to be, how can you talk about a school when it hasn't even opened yet? Well, if you look at the top center picture, that picture was taken a couple of weeks ago. The construction is apace, it is moving forward, and I have every confidence of opening in August with a school that is prepared to welcome students and faculty. If you have been involved in any kind of construction, you know that there will always be wrinkles in that timeline. But we have been working on this project for several years. We have been in the construction phase for more than a year. And I truly expect that we are going to be opening on time and with a full contingent. Now let's talk about that contingent. We estimate that when we open, we'll open at around 400 students with the capacity to grow to over 2,000, well over 2,000. A couple of things to note there. First of all, I may have to revise that first statement as our applications have already blown past our expectations for the opening of the Beijing campus. Now, of course, we're very careful through our application process. It doesn't mean that everyone who applies will be accepted, but I have every confidence that we're on a great trajectory for opening with a solid core of students to be matched by really talented educators that are going to be joining us. So very good on that. And as I said, we're very, very careful about what constitutes a BASIS student and the type of learning environments we want to build. So as I said, construction is apace, applications are rolling in at a pace which surprised even me, but perhaps it shouldn't. You see, this isn't the first school we have opened in a new market. There have been towns in which we've opened schools, and we have been remarkably successful, growing every year to our targets. So we're very pleased with what's happening. Well, and of course, why Beijing? There are a lot of schools already in Beijing, and I'll say this without qualification or hesitation, a lot of great schools in Beijing. See, there are many great schools around the world, and I've had a privilege to work in some of them. BASIS is a unique model that we'll talk about. It's a school that serves a particular set of parents and students, and attracts a particular type of faculty member. It isn't to say that we are better in some objective sense than other schools, but it is to say that we are different. We have a mission, we have a vision, we know what we're doing. And we're so eager to be able to share that in the city of Beijing. We have schools around China. I've mentioned some already in Chengdu or Shenzhen. We have schools in Guangming, Nanjing, Hangzhou, Guangzhou. We have schools around China, but Beijing is unique. It's a unique opportunity. For me and my background as a historian, I can't wait to be in that city center that is both ancient and modern at the same time, both cultural and political and intellectual and historical and such. Beijing is going to be an exciting environment to work in, to be in, to establish a new school and to offer something new to the market there. As I said, there are great schools around the city, around the country, and around the world. What we're excited about is sharing basis. Now, what makes us unique? Let's start with curriculum. We've talked about facilities, and I do believe that facilities are important. There's no question that with better facilities, you have things that you can offer for students in their development as artists or musicians or athletes or scientists or literary critics or historians or mathematicians. Facilities are important, but I truly believe that is what is more important is what you are offering and the people that inhabit within. So let's talk first about a basis curriculum and what it looks like across the basis schools. Now, we begin with early childhood centers. In some schools, those might include both pre-K1 and pre-K2, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. In Basis Beijing, our plan is to open with kindergarten. Our ECE, Early Childhood Education Centers, are Reggio Emilio inspired. Now, why do I use that term, Reggio Emilio inspired? I think that unless you're living in a small village in Italy where you can take the children out each day and visit the baker and the post office and the cobbler shop and such, it's a little hard to say that you follow exactly the Reggio Emilio. But the Reggio Emilio idea is purpose-built play. It is allowing students to explore through toys or blocks or drawings or through instruments or tools or manipulatives or things that they can touch and feel and play with to get them to think deeply, to get them to understand the world around them, relationships within the family, how a community works, how businesses work. I was visiting one basis school not long ago, and the Early Childhood Center, they had developed an interest in museums. They'd been to a museum in the city, and the students wanted to build their own museum. So they took topics and they took artifacts, mostly hand-created, whether with paper or cardboard or with molding clay. And they begin to build artifacts and then to organize the room by different exhibitions. And then to invite administrators and teachers and older students from within the school to come and visit their museum. They're learning as well as playing. And they're learning all of those other things. They begin largely with parallel play, playing next to each other. And then as you see them develop, they begin to interact until eventually they're on cooperative play. But as much as I'm emphasizing here the idea of a play-based culture, let us say that they're also academic. In other words, what our MAP testing, the measures of academic progress, our MAP testing show is that our kindergartners go into first grade well accelerated above the norm. Some of them 1 to 2 years ahead in knowing their letters and recognizing sight words and in mathematics and such. So in this play-based environment, we are also infusing learning of literacy and humanities and mathematics and such. Now, when we go into the primary school, there we use a very particular model in both our ECE and our primary. And you see acronyms there. I will tell you, like every school, we love our acronyms. But we have what we call both LETs and SETs. Now, an SET, we call a subject expert teacher. It's an expat who has been trained abroad in teaching. Ideally, they know a variety of systems. Maybe they've worked in Common Core, or maybe they've worked in the national curriculum of England. Maybe they're from Australia or New Zealand or Canada. They've seen different curricular models. They've seen different aspects of literacy and humanities and such. That's the SET, the subject expert teacher. And then we have LETs, learning enhancement teachers. Now, our LETs are equally qualified, fully credentialed teachers, but they are born locally. Okay? Now, the remarkable thing about our LETs is every single one of them has had an overseas educational experience. Now, that's a challenging thing if you've not done it yourself. At least consider this. What is it like to study for an advanced degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, even a doctorate, in a language to which you were not born? I have LETs with master's degrees in counseling or in teaching or in literacy from Columbia and NYU, from Oxford and Cambridge, from London School of Economics and such. These are fully qualified teachers. And so what you see there on the screen is an emphasis in the co-teaching model. This is very important for any expat teacher joining us in ECE and primary to understand. The co-teaching model is a group of equals working together. You may see many things in a ECE or primary classroom in terms of teaching. You might see the SAT at the front of the room leading instruction while the LET is circulating, helping individual students who may be struggling with a particular topic. It could be reversed. The LET might be delivering the primary instruction while the SET is moving around the room. They might divide the room in half. Could be based on ability or a particular topic, could be based on the interest within the unit. There might be a pull-out session where either the LET or the SET has removed a couple of students from the classroom to work on a particular issue. It could be phonics and such. But I truly want to emphasize that we are looking for people who are eager to partner with others. And it isn't just partnering in your classroom with the LET and the SET. You see, and we'll talk about that through the entire BASIS network. The entire BASIS network is one of collaboration and partnering. We work with others who teach what we teach, who do what we do, to grow stronger and better together, to share not only resources, but ideas, to hear when we're struggling and we need help and such. This is a cooperative environment. Now, something else that's very unique about our primary school, and something that is different and may not be the right environment for even a great teacher, a primary teacher, is that we do not use the homeroom model starting in primary. In primary grades 1 through 3, there will be a different teacher taking responsibility for humanities, which will include English and what we would call perhaps social studies and such. The humanities teacher working with the LET. And then there will be a separate math science teacher who takes responsibility in that area. There will also be specialists, drama, music, arts, PE. You see, we fully believe that primary students are more than capable of working with 7 to 8 different charismatic, caring adults who are specialists in that area. By the time we get to 4th and 5th grade, the math science areas have divided. And now we have a specialist in math and a specialist in science in 4th and 5th grade. Why do we do that? Well, then we get to the accelerated nature of the basis curriculum, because you see, in 5th grade and 4th grade, our students are studying pre-algebra. So we want a specialist in the classroom with them. They're beginning to branch out in the sciences to understand the different disciplines within it and such. And we want a science specialist. And humanities. And also, as we move into the 5th grade, we're adding other classes, for example, in classics and such. So we fully believe that primary students are more than capable of that. Now, I have colleagues who I respect very deeply, who believe in the homeroom model during primary school. I understand that. And if that is your interest, your belief, your passion, well, then BASIS might not be the right environment for you. You can be a rock star teacher. But if you really don't believe in the model that we're teaching, it may not be the right place. So please do your homework, understand what we are, understand what we do and why we do it. And if it's something which appeals to you, then I ask you, please contact us. We're eager to have that conversation with you. Now, our students move on from primary school and they move into the middle school. Now, in the middle school, they will begin to specialize with teachers based on the liberal arts method of education. You may have heard, and I think it is true, that BASIS is a highly academically focused, rigorous area. We are. There's no question about that. For example, in upper primary and in middle school, our students will end every quarter with a benchmark exam over what they have been learning. And at the end of the year in middle school, they will have comprehensive exams in every subject they take. You see, we believe that students can retain and need to retain the subjects that they learn during the year. Now, for the teacher, that means recursively going back to again cover material that you may have covered in the fall or right before winter holidays and such as we get toward the comprehensive exams. As I called it a liberal arts model, let's recall that the liberal arts began really in the Renaissance in Europe. And it was the idea that to be a well-educated, informed, and participatory member of society, you needed to have a broad education that prepared you in many areas. So our students in middle school, they're taking English and Chinese. They're taking all the sciences. They are taking chemistry and biology and physics. They're studying about the environment. They're taking history classes. They're taking, aside from language and interest, they're taking mathematics, and they're taking mathematics at increasingly challenging levels. In fact, we begin to differentiate then among their levels of mathematics. For this liberal arts education in the middle school, they are also doing electives in speech and debate, in music, in drama, in the visual arts, because we believe that every one of those are essential for participating not only in the society around you, but also for understanding the beauty of life, to understand that there are different truths to be found in mathematics or art, or music or science, or history or English. We want them to read. We want them to be numerate. We want them to be literate. We want them to be curious. We want to excite them. Coming out of that liberal arts education, they enter into the high school. Now, our high school is designed around, in part, and I want to emphasize in part, the College Board Advanced Placement program. Now, over my career, I have run schools that followed the British National Curriculum. I've done the IB. I understand something about the Mexican National Curriculum. There are many great curriculums. IGCSE. We do the American Advanced Placement program in high school. Now, what does that mean? That means when a student enters high school, they're continuing in part their liberal arts style of education from middle school. They still have requirements that they must fulfill. They do not specialize, for example, as they might do in the excellent kind of O-levels or A-levels or such. That kind of specialization I understand, and it can be very powerful for some students. We don't believe in doing that quite yet. As you enter high school, you'll take honors level courses leading toward AP courses in the sciences and the humanities, okay, in mathematics and in language and language arts. We want those students to take as many APs as is reasonable for that student. It may vary student to student. We might have a student that does 5 APs over their career. We might have a student that does 12 or more during their career. We look at each individual student. It might be a good time to define the term rigor because we use it often. We do believe in rigor, but what is rigor? Rigor is the most challenging set of courses and education for a student at which they can succeed. Rigor will differ student to student. So we'll start with honor courses. We'll go into the AP, whether it is AP Psychology or AP Calculus AB or BC, whether it's one of the 3 AP Physics courses or English Language or English Lit or History. But beyond the APs, we actually have 2 more things that I should discuss. One is that we have created what are called the medal tracks. So a student might choose to pursue a medal in science or in humanities or in the arts, a series of courses which they design to take them to a higher level of an area in which they have a great passion and interest. And beyond the APs, we have capstone classes, so that many of our seniors, by the time they reach the senior year, they're taking capstone classes, classes which are designed by expert educators who will take them beyond an AP course into really college level material in an area, again, which is of passion and interest to them. So it's a very rigorous education. It's a very rigorous curriculum, and it's one to which we value every stage along the way. There is no difference to me in the importance of a senior level physics teacher and a fantastic humanities teacher in 1st grade. Both are doing essential work in preparing children at different stages for moving on through their education. At BASIS, we have a culture of observation and feedback. Every teacher, every year, will be observed multiple times by administrators and chairs of departments inside the school, feedback given through something what we call the PL logs, the professional learning logs. Now, I want to emphasize that this is not an attempt. It's not a got you moment. We don't go into a classroom looking for what's not going right. It's really a celebration of learning. You see, we carefully recruit teachers which we believe can be inspirational and life-changing for students, and I don't say that lightly, in the classroom. And we go in and we observe a lot. In fact, if you're a basis teacher, you will stop looking up when an adult walks in the back and sits down, whether they sit for 10 minutes or 40 minutes, you'll stop looking up because you're so used to it happening. After the observation, we'll give feedback on what we saw. We'll ask questions. I have learned so much about my own teaching and ways in which I can improve in this environment in China by watching other teachers, Chinese language teachers, science teachers, mathematics teachers. I saw a fourth grade humanities class the other day that made me think about how I use choral reading or might use choral reading with 11th graders. So it really is an environment in which we believe that no one has reached an endpoint, that all of us are in the constant process of becoming better teachers. Well, let's talk then about how we measure and why I have such absolute confidence that we're going to succeed in the Beijing market. Now, one thing I think is very unique about BASIS is the way that we report our results to our community, to our parents, and to the world. You see, we know that whether it's a BASIS international school or a BASIS bilingual school, virtually every single one of our graduates will go overseas for their tertiary studies. They will go to Canada, the UK, they'll go to Germany or Holland, they will go to France, they will go to the US, they will go to Australia or New Zealand, they will go around the world to top universities to pursue their studies. Generally, when you look at a school as they will report their results, they'll tell you the bottom part. Our acceptances include, and yes, we're very proud of our acceptances. We've had students in just the last 2 years go to Boston University and Cambridge, Cornell and Duke, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, London School of Economics. We have placed them in Cambridge. We've placed them in MIT and Carnegie Mellon. We've placed students all around the world, and we're very proud of that. We're very proud with the education we've given them and then the assistance in college applications to credential themselves to be attractive to the best schools around the world. But I want to take note of the two statistics at the top. You see, when we report our results, we don't just list the schools to which our students have been accepted because, quite frankly and quite honestly, you never know if that's just one student who got into all the Ivy Leagues. What are they reporting? What we report to the world is the entire results for our graduating classes across the entire network. You see, last year, 98% of our graduates, 98% of our graduates were accepted into top 50 universities around the world, 74% of them into top 30. Our placement results are off the charts, and we're very proud of that. But I'm also just as proud that we're not just trying to get them accepted into top universities, but truly place them in schools which are powerhouses in the fields where they have an interest. There are great art and design schools. There are great film schools. There are great science schools. There are great humanities schools. There are research schools. There are independent liberal arts colleges that provide every bit as powerful an undergraduate experience as some of the top known universities. But we look at our entire class. We feel an obligation to every single student who graduates from BASIS. Yes, we're all proud of the ones that get into Oxford and Cambridge and London School of Economics and Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown. All of those thrill us, in part because of the smiles we see on students when they open those emails now with acceptances, and we celebrate those. But we track every single one of our students. Every single one of our students is important to us. Where they go next, what their road or their path is to the next stage of their life. So as you might guess, I'm in a search right now looking for amazing educators, whether from within China or around the world, who might be interested in being part of BASIS. Now, I've worked with and in different BASIS schools. I think there is something unique to each one, based in part on leadership and the faculty within. We're not cookie cutter schools necessarily, but I think there are some common touch points that I can mention to you. It is an academic culture. Do we have advisories and social emotional learning and such in our classes? Absolutely, yes. We care about their development. We care about them as human beings, but we believe that students are generally capable of more than they even know. We look for teachers who are there to challenge and excite students in their fields. I told you I'm a AP European history teacher. I have to talk about the Reformation and the Renaissance, something far removed in time from most of my students. But I tell you, I'm excited about it. And my goal is to take that infectious excitement that I have to show them why the world they live in today is in part so influenced and so tied to what happened before. Maybe your thing is mathematics, and you see the beauty and the art, the music in mathematics that leads them into that. You can take, I have been in a class where I've watched somebody do calculus instruction and been drawn in by their own excitement and their passion for that, and begun to understand because of the clarity of their explanations and their illustrations and their analogies, to be drawn into that. You see, we believe that students can be reached by charismatic, caring adults who know them, who want to know them, who know more than just as a student, but as an individual, and then can share with them the excitement of learning. We're an academic culture. In any given year, I have a number of teachers who are pursuing further studies, different courses. We share with each other. As I said, if you come in and you're teaching any course at BASIS, let's say that you're teaching, for example, chemistry to sixth grade students. You are connected to every other sixth grade chemistry teacher around the network. You're sharing digital resources. You're meeting on a regular basis to talk about the course and talk about the learning. You're meeting other adults that do what you do, who understand both your struggles and can celebrate your triumphs as well. We're a very academic culture. But as I said, we're also a collaborative learning environment. You are not an island at BASIS. You are part of a larger community. Your school, truly. Every Thursday, we gather for an hour after school for professional development and learning, sometimes in the small group of your particular class unit. You're teaching, for example, AP Art History. Maybe you're growing, for example, with your department, the Social Studies department in middle and high school, or the Math Science group in primary school. You're meeting in your small group to talk about teaching and learning and the progression of learning across the division and such. Maybe you're meeting in your division to talk about how we're doing assessments and reporting and what's upcoming, how we're communicating with parents and such, how we're trying to build the resilience of students and such. Maybe you're meeting, for example, as I said, online. There may be all school meetings. We are a collaborative learning environment. You're someone who is very proud of what you do. You're proud of the fact that you create a lot of your own materials for teaching because you found unique ways to reach students with topics which they find difficult. But you're also the person who says, I'm willing to share those. I'm willing to show my colleagues what I do and why I do it that way, and also to learn from them. As I said, I think the BASIS has a unique environment of this collaborative network around China. There are BASIS schools, as I said, 13 now, and they will be growing in the next couple of years. So let's say, for example, that you join us in Beijing and you're with us. I hope to keep you as long as I can. Let's say I keep you 4 or 5 years and you say, listen, I understand BASIS and I embrace what we do at BASIS, but I've always wanted to try a different city. I'd like to live out in Panda Country in Chengdu. I'd like to go down to the city of Shenzhen, that pre-planned city of the future that was a fishing village a few decades ago and now is a metropolis. I'd like to try Hangzhou or something. Well, you have that opportunity to stay within BASIS and yet move within the network. It may be for career development. Perhaps your divisional leadership is set and will be there for a while, but as a talented chair or dean, you have the opportunity perhaps to go to another BASIS school in China as a vice head of division, rising to division head. BASIS promotes as much from within as we recruit from without. So it's a truly exciting environment to be in. And just on a personal note, I might add that I believe in it so much that my oldest daughter is teaching at the school in Nanjing. When she was first recruited by BASIS, which was actually before anyone realized she was my daughter, they only realized at the very end as they were looking at kind of last names, when they were recruiting my daughter, and she asked me about BASIS. And I said, BASIS will challenge you as a teacher. BASIS will challenge you as a teacher. It's going to feel strange when you first get there to have people visiting your classroom all the time. But if you truly take the feedback to heart and the spirit in which it is meant, if you yourself investigate how others teach and what others do, you will grow so much. And then your opportunities for career advancement, as long as you are talented and dedicated and hardworking and such, are almost limitless within BASIS. So the BASIS network is there. But you do have to mention our BASIS students. As I said, we are very careful during our recruitment process because not every student will excel at BASIS. I think what every school has to be able to say is, what is the type of student we can serve best? As I said, there are many great schools around the world. There are students that will be served better at other schools than they would be at BASIS. I say that without any shame. You have to understand what you do best, what your mission is, what your vision is, who you best serve, what sort of parent works best with a BASIS school. Our BASIS students are universally, they are ambitious. There's no question for that. They have, appropriate to their age, an understanding of what I call delayed gratification. They understand for the future they want, they're going to have to make sacrifices now. They're going to have to work. They're going to have to sometimes spend a little extra time preparing for that spelling test or that math test or that physics exam when they might like to be doing something else. We are also going to challenge them, and they are going to be as competitive on the sports field as they are going to be in the classroom. We want them to be embracing life, pursuing life, to be challenging life, to be experimenting with life. They'll take risks. When you go into a fifth grade classroom and you see a student who perhaps only 3 years ago or 4 years ago was in a host country language environment in their education and are now standing up to give a speech in class in front of their classmates. And then perhaps the next year to join the speech and debate tournament and travel around China to BASIS schools. And then maybe a year or two after that, going to the Harvard speech and debate tournament. When you see students doing that, you see them growing in confidence, in determination, in resilience. Are they perfect every day? They are not. They are children growing into adulthood. And that is why they need you. That is why they need teachers. They need teachers, and as I emphasize to every parent I meet as we do our recruiting events, we know that parents are the first and most important teacher of their child. And so we emphasize with parents the need to partner with the school. Their children won't be perfect every day, but we celebrate their journey of becoming and what their future holds. Well, I've talked a lot about BASIS in general, in a sense, and curriculum, but also in Beijing. But as I said, BASIS is much larger. I'm going to turn it back over to Michael Holquist to tell you more about BASIS and the network, and also some of the nuts and bolts of the terms and conditions and such before we open it up for questions that you might have. Michael?
Mark, thank you very much for taking us through all the information about Beijing and the curriculum and the students. That was absolutely wonderful to hear about kind of everything you guys are planning there in Beijing. But as Mark said, I want to kind of introduce myself here. My name is Michael Holtquist, and I'm one of our international recruiters here working specifically with Beijing. And so I want to go over a little bit about the network and just the process as well of teaching with BASIS. So as Mark said, while a teacher would be joining BASIS Bilingual School Beijing, you're not there on an island. You are there as part of this larger network. And BASIS, at this point, we are a very extensive network. We have 16 campuses in China between both international schools and bilingual schools, as well as we also have 12 independent schools here in the United States as well as another international school in Bangkok, Thailand as well. So even though you are joining BASIS Bilingual School Beijing, you're not alone, and you are part of that larger network, and you have the support and the resources of your colleagues from across all of those schools, and not just at that one individual school that you're particularly stationed at. Then the question is, well, why China? Like Mark was saying, there's schools all around the world, and what makes China special? What makes teaching with BASIS in China so special? And the first off is, like Mark said, it's the students, it's the families. It's there in China. It's a tradition of education being highly valued. There's a culture that deeply values education. Teachers there are very, very respected. And so as a result, you have students and families that are very engaged and want to be there and want to really do the best that they can. Also with China is it's extremely modern. To me, it's always interesting there in China because you have the very traditional and the very modern right next to each other. Beijing is a hyper modern city, but you still have all of those historical events, those historical buildings, just that long culture side by side with that modern city and all the conveniences of modern living. I know the Beijing metro is such an easy way to get around the town there in particular. As well as just that culture, it's dynamic, and it's that blending of cultures that BASIS really, really wants to do. Like Mark was talking about, our students, we know when they graduate with us here at BASIS, they're going to go to university outside of China. And it's about blending those cultures together. It's about blending that traditional Chinese culture with the cultures from our teachers from around the world, as well as just the cost of living. With China, there is a relatively lower cost of living from where a lot of our teachers are coming from. And so as such, teachers are able to save by and large, or are able to earn a good living, especially when you consider all of the other factors that go into a teacher's kind of total compensation with here at BASIS, which we'll go over here in just a little bit as well. One of the questions is, well, how do I get to China? I'm not in China, I need a visa, or I'm in China, I need my visa transferred. How does BASIS support that? And probably the biggest group here at BASIS that is just absolutely amazing what they do is our HR team. Our HR team is second to none. And they go out of their ways to help teachers and their families just in ways that are unimaginable. First off, is they do help you get your visa. All of our teachers are there in China on that correct teaching visa. They assist teachers getting their visas. They assist spouses with getting their spousal visas. children getting their dependent visas. The HR team, they book your flights, and they book teachers' flights when we first get to China, and we pick you up at the airport. So you're not just coming into the airport and giving an address. Is someone meets you there and takes you to your housing. And before you get there, the house is prepped. You're not coming into an apartment that is empty. The house is prepped, and it's checked and set up by our HR team. So the Wi-Fi is set up. There's the essentials are prepared, and as you can see, there's even little gift boxes that leave, so you don't have to leave your first day. So you can kind of come in and relax after a long flight. Additionally, in those first few days, the HR team helps people get set up for life there in Beijing. They help with setting up banking and phone apps. They help with the residency permits. We also organize tours to show teachers around to where the shopping is, where the restaurants are, and everything around the city. Just making sure that you're comfortable with your new environment and really set up for success. So you really can have that smooth transition for yourself there. So I mentioned before that teachers they really are able to earn a good living, and part of that is the expat package. So in addition to the in addition to the base salary, there are also other benefits as well. There are travel benefits. So like I said, we book your flights to China. There's a travel allowance that teachers receive every single year for travel during their contract, as well as just that visa support. So you don't have to try to navigate the visa process on your own. We do provide you housing, and it's fully paid, fully furnished housing, as well as for teachers already there in Beijing or has a spouse that may work somewhere else. There's also the option for a stipend as well. If a teacher said, "Hey, I'd rather find my own apartment instead," there's a stipend to do that. So almost all of our teachers do use the school provided housing, but for ones that want to, there's a stipend as well. As well as Mark was saying, here at Basis, the teachers, they do tend to be a very fit, very health conscious bunch. And so there is health and tuition support as well. There is global health insurance. So you are covered for your health care, both there in China, but also outside of China as well. As well as we provide tuition benefit for up to 2 children. So your children can go to school with you. As well as you do get meals at the school. And these are not meals like I was used to when I was in school. These are some incredibly well prepared, incredibly nutritious meals. It's not the cheesy taco boat that they would serve out of the cafeteria when I was in elementary school, but is really well prepared, very healthy meals that teachers can have every school day, breakfast and lunch. Additionally, saving for retirement is important, and we do provide all of our teachers a 10% yearly retirement bonus. As well as at the end of a teacher's assignment, there is that completion bonus. As well as throughout the year, as well as also additional opportunities for additional bonuses or stipends as well, depending on kind of what teachers do and kind of any clubs, any activities, and that type of stuff as well. So what does it take to become a basis teacher? And there are a number of factors. And the first factor that we look for teachers to have a degree in their subject area. When we're looking for a biology teacher, we look for teachers with a degree in biology. We're looking for a chemistry teacher degree in chemistry, an art teacher degree in art, not just because they have that deep content knowledge, but like Mark was saying, Mark has that passion for history. And when he's teaching about the Reformation, it may feel disconnect from his students, but they can see he cares about it. And when someone has a degree in their field, it's something they care about. They put a lot of time into it. All of the basis teachers have to have 2 years of full-time teaching experience. And that's full-time in classroom teaching experience, as well as just a passion for teaching and a passion for conveying their content to their students and getting the students to want to learn. As well as another thing Mark talked about as well is that collaboration. With us here, basically, we look for teachers who aren't just okay with collaboration, but teachers who really actively look for it and want to continue to grow, continue to learn, and continue to elevate their own teaching and the teaching of those around them. We do have those high academic standards, and we are going to push the students, but at the same time, the students are going to push us. they're going to challenge us as teachers to get better, and they're going to challenge us in our content area. They ask questions that are incredibly deep, incredibly meaningful, and we want teachers that are able to become learners alongside their students. And to do this, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of effort, and teachers that they do put in the time, but you get so much out of it. When you see that growth your students are making, you see that growth that you're making as a teacher, you really do see the value in that work that teachers do put in. And just the engagement that teachers can have to their students to get them to want to learn, to want to engage, and become lifelong learners themselves. That's a huge thing, because that's the most important thing, is how do we get these students to want to learn, become those lifelong learners. As well as, just there are some visa restrictions, and like I said, we have to bring all of our teachers in on the correct teaching visa. So we have to make sure we can get all of our teachers the right visa to teach there in Beijing. With coming in to working for Basis, what are some of the things that as a teacher you should know to determine, is this the right place for me? The first thing, is our students. The students, they are absolutely amazing students. They want to be, they want to push themselves, and they're local students. By and large, they are students from the local area. And as such, most of our students, English is their second language. And so being able to work with second language learners is very important. And being able to grow and understand how to best support a student in their second language is really critical. Additionally is flexibility. Our school there in Beijing, it's going to be brand new next year, and teachers are going to help create that school. And that's an exciting factor, because you get to be part of that team that creates a school and sets that school culture. But as such, there's going to be a lot of flexibility, because there's teachers are going to be asked to do things that maybe they haven't been done before, or they're going to be asked to try something new. As well as just with families coming to Basis, is make sure that your children are ready for a Basis education. As many of you that have taught overseas know, when you teach overseas, it's not just, is this right for me? It's, is this right for my whole family? And just ensuring that your children are ready for that basic education is so important, because we want them to be successful too. If they're not successful, we're not doing right by them. And so just making sure it's basically the right place for them is incredibly important. So I'll pass this over to Tim, and I think because he's got a few more things to talk about in terms of how to get more insights and more information.
Great, thanks, Mike. Thanks for the insights that you both have provided. I would just add that, if you're looking for more information, you'll find some really good information in a few channels. Number one, our career site. Through our career site, you can see all of the current open jobs, not only for Beijing, but also across all the schools within our network. In our blog, you'll be able to read stories and see videos of individuals who, are teachers who are sharing what it's really like to be a part of Basis, to teach at one of our schools, and to live in certain locations. So you'll see some good insights there. Lastly, you can join our talent community. You'll receive updates on news, happenings, events, new positions that are open. But you can also, join us on our social channels. You'll see additional, posts. Again, you'll see a lot of insights of what is happening in our schools, what takes place, what are the students doing, and what it's like to be a teacher at our schools. With that, we will move to Q&A. So as a reminder, if you do have questions, feel free to use the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to submit a question to us, and we'll go through and answer all the questions. As we do have questions coming in, Mark, I know that as we've had conversations with some individuals, there have been some questions come up, or some, possibly some concerns come up. So I wanted to maybe ask some questions to get your perspective on a few things that people may be wondering. First is, the Beijing market is a pretty competitive landscape for international schools. There have been some schools that have opened there or have been there and have kind of shrunk, if you will. Talk to us about, from your perspective on why is BASIS opening a new school in Beijing, and how might we be different relative to what others have experienced?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things going on. This is actually my second time back in China. I was in China in the early 2010, around in that area. China has changed, the market has changed, a number of things are going on. First of all, the BASIS school in Beijing will be a bilingual school. As has been mentioned already, BASIS has a variety, two different types of schools. They have the bilingual schools and they have the international schools. BASIS began as an international school environment. Now, what are the differences between the two? BASIS international schools and BASIS bilingual schools have a great deal of similarities, more similarities than differences. As has already been mentioned by Michael, the vast majority of our students are host country nationals. The difference between the two schools is that to attend an international school, a student must have either a foreign passport to have acquired that or a foreign residency permit. Beijing is going to be a bilingual school. We're not going to have a dual campus there. We're not going to have international and bilingual. We're strictly going to do bilingual. You see, that is the fastest and strongest market right now in China. Okay? Chinese development, the number of people who want this sort of private education is growing. The bilingual gives them options because we follow the instructions and the regulations of the national authorities in terms of education and such, while teaching in an internationalized style, in whether it's in language arts or in mathematics or science or such. And as I said, we're preparing our students almost exclusively to go overseas. That's, again, a very strong market. So coming into Beijing as a bilingual school, being able to accept a wide range of students. We can accept those that have, for example, a Chinese nationality, but a residency permit, or strictly those with a Chinese passport. It's a strong market. And as I said, we all have hopes, but I've actually watched the reality of our number of applications blow past our expectations for our opening year. So I have a lot of confidence. The other thing is that I've seen us go into other markets, other cities, where we began as one of the kind of smallest international schools in that area, and we now are the largest and such. So I think BASIS has a good model. It has a curriculum which well prepares students for tertiary studies abroad. It is a good citizen within China, working within the educational bureau's requirements and expectations. Parents trust us to give their child not only a world-class education, but also to firmly ground them in their host country identity and culture and language and such. I'll give but one illustration. In the school where I'm currently sitting, this year we decided that we would start a Chinese speech and debate team. In other words, we've had a very strong speech and debate team here in English. In fact, one of our students took a top award at the Harvard Speech and Debate last year. Very proud of him and his teammates, and others won awards and teams won and placed and all of that. So very proud of that. But this year we thought, we were asked by our parents, well, how good is the Chinese education too at BASIS? And we said, all right, we're going to start a Chinese speech and debate team. This year out in the Western province, we took second in the province in speech and debate against schools, Chinese schools that have been doing speech and debate for decades. I'm really proud of our Chinese department and our Chinese teachers as well. So I think what we illustrate to parents is you can have the best of both. Your child will love their country, love their culture, understand their language, reach a high academic level in that language, but also get the touch with the international education and the possibilities of future. They will go to tertiary studies and graduate work abroad, and then they will come back to China and start businesses and influence the country for good and the world as well.
Right. Thank you for that. I would also add, to your point of, the enrollment has, I mean, even this early has exceeded expectations and is ahead of what we had been targeting. But also, the results that you spoke to earlier are far superior than any other group could speak to. Maybe a one-off school may have something close, but there's no group that has such consistent university acceptances that we do have. The other thing that I would add is, looking at China, as other groups have expanded into bilingual education, we're the only group that has retained our brand in opening up bilingual schools. So we have Basis International and Basis Bilingual Schools, and a lot of that has to do with the reputation, the results, the quality of the education that we do provide is something that is very different than what you see in other groups opening schools in Beijing. I think will be also lead to continued success of us opening new schools, and particularly this one in Beijing. Another question, in terms of you're opening a new school, what are some of the traits that you're looking for in teachers? What's going to be important to you of what you're looking for in the teachers that you want to have be a part of this first founding year?
Yeah. We've talked about some things, in terms of all basis teachers, we do believe in disciplinary expertise. We do believe there is something known as foundational knowledge in all of the disciplines which are critical for students to understand, to be informed, engaged, powerful citizens in their own country. And we do, as you said, have international schools with students from around the world. But obviously, with opening a new school, there are going to be challenges. You are a teacher who understands that work is hard, that rewarding work is sometimes even harder, but you take great pride of what you do. Whether you are a second grade math teacher, you're a fifth grade classics teacher, you're a middle school biology teacher, you're a upper school teacher who's doing a capstone class in psychology. It doesn't matter what you do. You are very intent on the education that you provide to your students. You see them as individuals. You know which ones are going to struggle with a concept, and you're thinking about materials to help them understand it better. You're able, when sharing with colleagues, to find cross-disciplinary connections between your classes, and you like to exploit those in your studies. As I said, you know good materials that others have created, and you borrow them with attribution, of course. But on the other hand, you've probably never finished a year and thought, you know what? That was a home run. There was nothing I would change about the way I taught that class. I'm going to teach it exactly the same way next year. I've never done that. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I came late to education, so I'm a lot older than some of the people watching this video. But I've never yet finished a year and thought it was a home run. But that isn't a sense of despondency. Indeed, that's a sense of challenge. Okay, next year I'm going to find a different way to do the revolutions of 1848, because I still don't feel like they're grasping the excitement of those years. Whatever you do, you're excited about that. As I said, you are, though, more than the classroom. You love being in the classroom. It may be theater to you, it may be excitement, but you're more than the classroom. You're with your students on your subject, and you want to take them to the very highest level of understanding of which they're capable, depending on the age group and where they're at in their studies. But also, you just like being with them. Perhaps you're leading a club. Perhaps you're coaching and such. Now, we have set expectations within what I'll call, broadly speaking, the contract hours of a teacher. We all arrive around 7:30 in the morning, well, before 7:30 in the morning. Some of us arrive at 7 because we like the breakfast on campus. It is, as Michael said, really good. We hire chefs from around the area of each individual basis school that are top notch. One of our schools has the pastry chef from the Beijing Olympics. I mean, we really recruit well in every area that we do. So we might arrive a little bit earlier than 7:30. We might arrive at 7, have breakfast. At 7:30, we're on. Now, we might be helping with students, at the gates. We might be patrolling the halls or the cafeteria or such. We might be on duties or not. We might be in our classroom. We'll start teaching at 8. We'll teach different periods, we'll have lunch and such. On most days, we'll end at 4:30. On 2 days a week, on one day, on every Thursday, there will be that collaboration hour. As I said, whether in your department, your division, whole school, or network-based, there's going to be that collaboration event going on every Thursday. There'll be one other day when you'll do some student hours, or you might do it in 2 half hours after school. Depending on your stage in life, you're the type of individual that I said wants to get involved with students outside the classroom. Maybe you're leading a club, maybe you're coaching. Now, those are all stipended activities. We do believe that when we ask you to do something, that we should recognize the time that you're devoting to it. If, for example, I say to you, listen, we're doing an open house day to illustrate a basis education to new applicants for next year. Can you come in on Saturday morning? There's a stipend for that. I don't ask you to do that. We have our set hours. We have a couple of evenings, back to school nights. Those are every year, okay? But otherwise, we recognize that. But although you're getting a stipend, the chances are you're doing it because you love it. You can't wait to coach girls basketball or boys badminton or to lead the robotics club or, as I said, to do a speech and debate tournament. You're a drama teacher. For example, my drama teacher right now, last weekend, took, I think it was 35 kids down to Shenzhen for a network drama event that was on site for kids to do that. So you chaperone sometimes, you travel with teams and such. Now, it may happen one year, you and your partner have just had the birth of a new child and you have to cut back for a time. We understand that. We understand life. We do. And we respect your time, okay? But again, for the most part, our teachers just can't wait to get involved. You're also, as Tim mentioned, flexible. 3 of my teachers have stepped up and taken on an extra lesson, okay? And such. The thing that filled me with the most joy ever was when I walked up to one of them and said, I need to talk to you. He said, I've heard. I thought you'd be coming to look for me. I'm happy to do it. Okay. That's the kind of spirit, I want to recognize that I'm taking more time from him. So we've cut back on other duties for him to try to help. Okay. So I'm cognizant of the time and the burdens and all of that. But at the same time, that flexibility is just so very important. It might be you coming to me and saying, Mark, my background has been teaching this. You may not know, I've got a lot of experience with something else, and I'd like to branch out next year. So, for example, I've got a teacher right now who's moved into another department part-time to kind of get some more experience there because she did it in the past and she wants to do more of it in the future. So we're as flexible as well. It's not so much the challenges that come, it's how you react to them. How you react to them. To me, it's not really a problem that lands on my desk. It's just a new issue in need of a creative solution.
Thanks for that insight. I appreciate it. Another question is asking about teacher housing. The specific question is teacher housing on campus? Can you talk a little bit about what people can expect from housing?
I can, because that's one of the first questions I ask, because as you're recruiting teachers, yes, the school is important. It's nice to have, as I said, beautiful facilities, curious students, cooperative parents. All those things are wonderful, but you also have to live somewhere and you have to know what your life is going to be like. So I now have been gathering pictures of different housing options in the Beijing neighborhood based on price points, okay? So in some basis campuses, they do have faculty faculty provided housing on campus. They're generally in areas that are a little bit separate from campus, so you truly feel you get a break when you walk off campus at the end of the day. We won't have that at the start in Beijing. We'll be using housing around the area, but yes, we'll be granting a stipend. Our HR services would work with you even before you arrived, understanding your needs. Our housing stipends are largely based on your condition. For example, there's one housing stipend for a single teacher coming in. There's another housing stipend for a teacher, single teacher who's teaching at the school with dependents. There's another housing stipend, for example, for two teachers. Spouses are each working at the school. There's another stipend. Sometimes happens that we will have faculty members that decide to share housing. In other words, to pool their resources to get a larger house. I have faculty members who say, well, I'm willing to kick in a little bit more because I want this or that, or I want to be closer to this particular landmark or shopping area or such. But we walk you through all of that to kind of illustrate what your options are. But yes, at the beginning, at least, all of the BASIS teachers will be living off campus in the neighborhood around the school.
That's great.
Thank you. And we had another question as well. You mentioned there's the expat teachers and the local teachers. Could you go over again a little bit about how they collaborate? Is it there's a teaching assistant, or are they equal teachers? Can you just kind of talk about that a little bit?
That's something that I really want to emphasize because different schools do it in different ways, okay? And as I said, I respect a lot of great schools around the world, but I need to talk about the uniqueness of BASIS. In every early childhood and primary classroom, there are two full-time teachers all the time. One will be an expat and one will be a local hire. As I said, that local hire will have advanced degrees from around the world. They might have a master's degree from UPenn in psychology or literacy development or whatever. They're going to be fully qualified teachers working together in this co-teaching model. So the type of teacher, the type of expat who will not succeed at BASIS is one who walks in and treats their partner like a teaching assistant. This is your co-equal. This is your left hand and right hand working together. And that's truly what we want and what we expect and what we will settle for no less. Okay. Now, as you move up into middle and into high school, you will find, I would say, a predominance of expat teachers, but you will also find amazingly talented local teachers. Okay. I just talked to a candidate the other day. He's a local candidate who got both his undergraduate and his master's degree in the United States, okay? And his level of English and such, because you see, we expect every class, with the exception of our Chinese language classes, to be taught in English. All of our local teachers are fully qualified to teach their subject in English. Okay, and so that is the mode of operation of the school. Now, this, of course, makes it a wonderful landing spot if this might be your first experience in China. Maybe you're a well-experienced international educator, but this may be your first time in China. But you're going to have around you a host of host country nationals who are all bilingual, eager to help, so proud to share with you their country, their culture, their history, their community, and such. We had talked earlier about what type of teacher succeeds. I want to add this. I do expect that everyone who comes in to BASIS China in Beijing, every single teacher who comes into BASIS Beijing will be willing to embrace Chinese culture, to attempt, to the extent possible, Chinese language, okay, to be willing to put out their own effort. It isn't just teaching in a bilingual school with great students, but it's to understand where you're coming in. You understand so much about a country and culture when you embrace the language, the extent to which you can. I'm not expecting that you're going to become fluent in the first 2 or 3 years. I do know that we're going to have to provide resources, dedicated resources, to help you on that journey. I also will fully admit that I have failed at as many languages as I have succeeded. While I was in Vietnam, I made what I thought was a valiant attempt at Vietnamese. I can direct a taxi around town. I cannot discuss world events in Vietnamese, but it was the attempt that was so appreciated by the local culture and citizens and the people there. Well, the same thing with the Chinese. The Chinese are very proud of their language and their culture and their history and the development in every city, okay? And when you make that attempt to understand the way that they think through language, it enriches you as it enriches your experience in the country, okay? Again, as I said, I truly believe that every language is a unique way at looking at the world, okay? Every language that I have studied has opened my eyes to something new. And I hope as you come into this school, you're willing to embrace that.
Great. Thank you. One of the next questions, this is kind of a good one. It says, as a performing arts teacher, I'd love to know more about the school events and traditions at BASIS. What kind of opportunities are there for a music teacher to contribute and support these events?
Okay. So, wow. First of all, yes, we build grand facilities. I mean, it's amazing. You can't wait to see the stage, but also the music practice rooms and study rooms and all of that. And so the facilities are going to be your first kind of gift. And then that's the environment in which you're going to create something. We have musical performances at almost every event, certainly every parent event. Let's just talk about what we're doing this current year. And I realize I'm at another school, but I'm moving over to Beijing, and I'm so excited to carry this kind of BASIS way, this BASIS tradition with me. So, for example, when we have open house events and we're inviting new parents to come in and look at the school, we have quartets playing in the hallways. We have students performing musically in those events to illustrate that as we believe a BASIS education, it is certainly academically powerful, but it also embraces and believes that all the disciplines are important for understanding the beauty of life. As we come up to cultural events, we're coming up to Zhongqiujie, which is the Mid-Autumn Festival, and then we'll come up to, as we celebrate the autumn and such, we'll have students playing outside at parent events as the kids come in and such and participate. We'll have a winter showcase where we will illustrate every division in terms of the musical performances they're doing in their music classes and such. We'll look for special opportunities. I had a group of students last year who put on their own musical concert to raise money for a particular school that had been devastated in a natural disaster, and they wanted to raise money for that school, and so they put on a musical offering for students and teachers and parents to come in support of that. We will do your typical theater performances, okay? And some of them are musicals, some of them are straight dramas and such. All of them will involve at least some orchestra performances and such. Now, let's be clear, as a school begins, this is going to be a challenge. We talk about those challenges of opening up a new school. When you open up, let's say we open up at 400, 500, even 600 students, how many violinists will I have? How many violas? How many cellists? How many horns? Who does percussions? What can we do? And so there is that kind of adaptability. For example, this year we wanted to offer, we had some students who had a real interest in doing a music class in the middle school. And so it was a rather small class, but I had the time in the timetable where I could open it up. There are actually 4 students in the class and the teacher. And so he came in, he and his wife both, they're brilliant. They're wonderful educators. He came into the classroom and he found out that he had 2 keyboardists and he had a drummer and then he had a violinist. And he said, what we're going to do this year? We're all going to pick up a new instrument. And they have chosen the trombone. So we went out, we got trombones and trombone stands and all of that. And now they are putting together a music class based on understanding for each of them a new musical instrument. And my parents love this idea. They love the idea that their students were going to be challenged in a new way. I would say, though, that this translates to every single discipline, especially when you're, for example, if you're a middle school teacher, but you might have something which you would like to do in a capstone class with seniors when we have the senior class in a few years, okay? Many of our teachers teach across 2 divisions, okay? It's something which is very common in many areas of the world where they have secondary rather than a kind of more American model of, you know, a middle school and an upper school or something like that. We have teachers who do that as well, or offer it as an after-school activity. So music, there are going to be challenges when you open as a smaller school, no question about it. But on the other hand, we involve music and the arts at every performance or every kind of public event we do when we bring in parents and such. And it's really quite exciting. And our students are very talented and creative.
Thank you. And as kind of following up on this, we had another question. You talked about some of the things that music and the art teachers do. With other teachers, what type of autonomy do they have within their own classrooms to make the class meaningful to their students and meaningful to them?
Okay. Right. Now I would say, you know, let's talk about autonomy. In one sense, I would say that it is perhaps greater in, for example, the visual arts or in music or in drama than it might be in, you know, 7th grade chemistry. 7th grade chemistry, they're going to have benchmark exams every quarter. They're going to have a comprehensive exam at the end of the year. Now, let me just digress for 1 second to say, I actually do not believe that is stultifying on a teacher. Because the truth is your students need to learn something. How you teach it, how you lead them to that understanding has a lot to do with you as a teacher. So, for example, I don't tend to teach European history from PowerPoints and illustrations. I create these packets of primary documents because I want them to read the voices in any particular period. So I would say that even in every other discipline, there's a great deal of freedom in the classroom within the expectations of where they lead. But certainly within the arts, there's more than that. We have a general kind of syllabus, a curriculum that we want them to cover, but it has to be adaptable based on the students that you have. So for example, I have a 2D art and design class going on right now. But the students have different interests in, by the way, how do I know so much about what happens in the classrooms? Because I'm doing observations every day. Okay, I mean, this is the most exciting part of my day, is being able to go and watch great teachers teach. But, you know, they'll go in and they will teach with different materials and different emphasis and different themes. Now, certainly in an art class, we need to understand the fundamentals of art, both, by the way, the Western tradition and the Eastern tradition of coloration and of composure and structure, conceptualization versus technical skill and all of that. There is something which is common. But then as you go in and you begin to develop with students, especially if you're an art teacher, for example, if we interview, please share your portfolio with me. I appreciate those teachers who share portfolios of what their students have done. I want to know what you've done. I want to see your portfolio. I want to understand. For example, we just had he's actually a local hire in art who has joined us. And his art is almost a kind of it's a modernist challenge on traditional themes. So he's got this one painting, which is basically, it's a reinterpretation of Rubens, that very kind of photorealistic wedding scene. I'm sorry, Van Eyck painting, but done with Chinese cultural themes and in a art scheme which is almost postmodern, okay? And by the way, he's a primary art teacher, okay? I love what he's doing with our kids, okay? He's taking our kids and interpreting that. So Do we have common expectations for classes? We do. Do we want a fundamental knowledge of your field and such? Do we want art to progress through the curriculum from primary into middle and upper so that they have a broad understanding of the arts? Yes, we do. But are you then free to be creative as a teacher? Oh, you are. And we're going to celebrate that. Wait till you see the art festivals that we have, not only in the school, but across the network. So anyways, I'm going on and on, but yes, I really think, if you're excited about what you do, you're going to excite kids and you're going to excite the rest of us in that community.
That's great. Thanks for that. Some questions that are a little bit more specific about curriculum, but one is, what kind of math, humanities, or English related arts curriculum does BASIS use?
Okay. I would say this. In our primary school, we use something called the EL curriculum. Okay, now that was developed in the United States. You can go look it up online, EL curriculum, and you can learn a great deal about it. However, it has to be adapted for the host country environment, where an American basis school might be able to spend 3.5 hours on a given day in just the English language arts, broken up, of course, appropriately for that. We have other things that we want to do as well. So while we're using it, we're also adapting it. If you get, for example, into eighth grade biology, if you're in an 8th grade biology class, if you have a good understanding of AP biology, that is going to be the core, the skeleton of what we do. Of course, age appropriate for what they know and the knowledge coming in. So I would say this, wherever you're coming in, whether you have a knowledge of Common Core, or you have a knowledge of the national curriculum for England or the national curriculum of England, depending on which variety you prefer. If you have taught IGCSEs, if you have taught IB, or if you've been in an MYP school, or you've been in a PYP school, there are going to be elements of what you have done that you are going to see in your curriculum. Because the truth is, good ideas are found all over. Now, I will tell you that personally, I tend to be a little program agnostic. What does that mean? I teach APs. My students are going to end the year and they are going to sit for the AP exam, and it is my responsibility that they are prepared for it. Would I teach an AP exactly the same way as every AP teacher around the world? No, because I have to teach it for the unique environment that I'm in, okay? And if you wonder about that, and I'll just share something personal from my own life, my wife and I were blessed with 4 children. Now they're all grown. I told you my oldest one is teaching at Basis Nanjing. My youngest daughter, my second child, does social media in Hong Kong. My son is doing computer science at UBC in Vancouver, and my other son is doing liberal arts in the United States. They did different programs. One did the full IB. One did a IB and AP classes combined. Another one did primarily AP. Good education is what matters. I truly believe that if you are an expert in your field, if you're passionate about what you do, whether it is a Reggio Emilio style kindergarten class, whether it's a, 4th grade art class, whatever it is, if you are passionate about it, if you know your subject, you can be a great basis teacher.
Kind of one other question we had is just with the calendar. Does BASIS use U.S. school calendar? How does this? Can you talk about the school year for teachers?
Right. So I have to divide this in 2 parts. I have to divide it for a first-year teacher, and I have to divide it for a returning teacher. But let's talk about returning first. All of you will be first-year teachers the first year, but let's talk about returning teachers first. For our returning teachers, they will generally arrive in China somewhere around the 2nd week of August. That's when our onboarding week begins at the local school. So our school year will be very akin to an American school year in terms of its length, about 183, 185 contact days, and about 10 days of professional development, if you count that first week, 5 weeks, and some other days during the year. That's going to be very standard. Now, something which is going to be new if you're not working in China is that the breaks are, well, they're different because some of them are based on the lunar calendar and they will shift from year to year. So you'll begin teaching probably third week of August. Right around October 1st, there is depending on the calendar and the shifting weekends, a 10 to 11 day break. It's called the national holidays, but it's also around the autumn festival, okay? And there's that 10-day period. So you teach up until right around August 1st, late September, August 1st, and you have a 10-day break. I will tell you that everybody in China is off on the same 10 days. So number one, book early because ticket prices go up. Number two, you may want to leave the country because everything we're seeing is going to be crowded with tourists all over, and it's going to be hard to get trains and planes and all the rest. But we have a wonderful October holiday, which is, for me, is just coming up at the end of next week. Then we'll go forward. There might be a long weekend or something in there, but we'll go forward. There'll be a Thanksgiving weekend. It's not really a week. It's a kind of Thanksgiving weekend in which we'll observe. But then the next kind of major break is your winter holidays. Now, your winter holidays will be about 2 weeks. It can be challenging if you are, heading back to Europe, or you're heading back to Canada, or you're heading back to the United States. 2 weeks can be challenging because, it takes you about 24, 36 hours to get home, and you're jet lagged while you're celebrating with your friends and your family and such. And then you're hopping back on a flight and you're coming back to China, and you get to get over jet lag all over again and such. That can be challenging. Okay, but you can say, well, why 2 weeks? Because some schools, for example, in Asia might do 3 weeks or such. Well, because the other major holiday is Chinese New Year's, and because Chinese New Year's floats on the lunar calendar, it can come as early as the end of January, or it can come in March. Okay, so it will kind of float over time, and that's another 2-week holiday, which again is celebrated all over China. So we all kind of hope that Chinese New Year comes a little bit later because that's a 2-week period. We don't have, as you might expect in, for example, a host country school in the United States or Canada, a kind of a week-long spring break. Week-long spring break tends to be, again, a long weekend rather than a week-long break. There's another holiday at May Day. May Day, of course, you would expect. And generally, we're finishing around the second week in June. So our typical year for a teacher who is returning is that you begin in, say, the second week of August with a week of onboarding. You start classes the third week of August. You go through those holidays, October holidays, winter holidays, Chinese New Year's, and a couple of other long weekends, and you generally finish the second week of June. So from the second week of June through to the second week of August is really your summer break. And, trust me, you've earned it. You've worked really hard during the year, and you need that time and to be off. Always nice that 10% retirement bonus comes during the summer, gets deposited in your bank account. Somebody should ask me about our kind of HR and finance services because they are top notch. But anyways, now let's talk about a first-year teacher. We do believe that coming into BASIS is joining a network which does things and has expectations which are unique. So if you are a first-year teacher and not already living in China, the very first year you will likely need to show up somewhere around the third week of July. Why is that? The first thing we have to do, because by the way, we do everything by the book in China. We do not in any way cut corners on government expectations and regulations. We need to bring you into your host city, wherever you're going to be, whether you're going to be in Chengdu or Nanjing or Shenzhen or Beijing. We need to bring you into that city. Got to make sure you have a house. Got to make sure your finances are working. Got to make sure you have a phone, because, by the way, you don't exist in China without your phone. Everything is on your phone. You pay for your taxi rides, you order food, you will go shopping with your phone. You go to restaurants and they have a little QR code on the table in which you read that and you order from the menu, which is then brought to your table. You don't ever let your phone run out of battery power in China. We need to get you acclimated. We need to get you, and if you're bringing a spouse and dependents, we need them to feel really secure in that city, okay? To feel like, okay, I know. Why? Because the first week in August, we're going to fly all of the teaching staff down to the city of Shenzhen, which is where we first began at BASIS. And we're going to hold something called Summer Institute. We're going to put you up at, by the way, a really nice hotel in an individual room for you. If you're a teaching partner, you're with your spouse, we're going to put you up in a really nice hotel. You're going to be taken care of the whole week. Summer Institute, you will hear from our leadership about the BASIS model and what we do. You will meet with, as a school, you'll meet with everyone new to your school that year, all of the BASIS team going down to Summer Institute from Beijing next year is probably going to be about 85, 90 people. It's going to be a large group. We're going to go down there, and you're going to have breakout sessions. You're going to be meeting with people who teach what you do. If you're a primary school teacher or a middle school, high school specialist in a discipline, you're going to be meeting chairs of your area, primary chairs, middle school, upper school chairs from around the network. You're going to be meeting with all of the teachers in BASIS, teaching what you're going to be teaching next year. You're going to leave there knowing 36 or more people from around the network who you're going to want to talk to during the year, as well as your school. The Summer Institute is where you kind of learn what we do in BASIS and why we do it that way. Okay, and really get acclimated. And then you're going to come back and do the week of onboarding at the individual school. In our case, that's going to be in Beijing. And then we're talking about things as mundane as, grade books, to IDs, to how to recognize the different colors of student lanyards, to understand who might have an allergy in food and who's allowed to leave, independently from campus and all of that. And I mean, it'll be the nuts and bolts, but there'll also be time for you to set up your classroom, because I know, okay, that week before school, teachers just want to be prepared for that very first day. And so we're going to give you time for that. So that's probably the year. As I said, the first year, it will start early. It will start early because we want you to know your city, your school, before you go down to Summer Institute. At Summer Institute, we want you to know the network, back for the onboarding days to know the school. In subsequent years, you'll be, as I said, arriving generally around the second week of August.
Mark, any other last closing comments?
Well, I think the last closing comment or comments that I would make, we've emphasized it, but I don't think we can emphasize it enough. Here as expats within the BASIS network, we work with the most amazing team on the operations side. From the general manager who bears overall responsibility for the school, to the head of operations, to the finance, to admissions, to communications, to everything. They are here to support you in a way which is just enveloping, okay? When you meet a challenge, they take it on as their own challenge to help you through, whether it is, communications or banking or WeChat or whatever. They're wonderful in that way. Second of all, we're a community that enjoys being together even outside of the school. You have the time to yourself to refresh, to center yourself as well, but we'll also organize activities. I was just out this weekend visiting a panda reserve with some of my faculty, okay? First time I've actually ever been out there, and that's great. But we organize these activities. So there's a social dimension to the school as well. The other thing is, there is within the administration, the leadership, and everyone here, truly an open door policy. From the moment you sign with us, you have our personal contact information. Our doors are always open to our offices unless we're holding a meeting, or in this case, a webinar today. So my office is closed for one of those rare occasions here at the school. But if it's important to you, it's important to me. We take care of our own, okay? Whatever you face after you get here, it's of interest to us. It's of importance to us. We want to be there to help you in that transition. You're going to add something unique to the school. You're going to add something unique to the school. You're going to bring your own expertise and your passion and your knowledge. You're going to bring a knowledge of ways in which things are done differently. We might not change the way we do it at BASIS right away, but we're certainly eager to listen, because there's always this culture of constant improvement, this pursuit of excellence in everything we do, okay, and in every department. It's truly, as I said, a kind of unique place. And I've worked at many different great schools and appreciated each of them, but I'm pretty partial right now to what we have at BASIS.
That's great.
Thank
And
you.
you mentioned a couple of times your daughter teaching with us in Nanjing, and I think that certainly says a lot, that you would encourage her and then support her in joining BASIS and teaching with the organization as well. Mark, really appreciate the depth of your insights, everything that you've shared, and the picture that you're painting for Beijing as we open up this fantastic new campus. One thing I would just say in wrapping up to remind, applications are handled through our career site at jobs.basisinternationalschools.com. So if you're interested in what positions are open now, you can visit there. You can set up job alerts. So when if you're not finding something that's open now, if something opens up later on, you can apply to, you can receive notifications and apply to positions. So for any applications, please feel free to visit our career site. You see the address there. Again, more information and insights on our schools, working, teaching with BASIS. You have a lot of resources that you can tap into to hear from other teachers and what their experience is like through a lot of these. We appreciate you joining us today, and look forward to seeing your applications come in and seeing you at different events that we may be attending as well.